All right, we are at 2 past the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to this week's workshop with Sentry and Nextdoor. If you've never been to a workshop before, welcome. If this is your first one. If you have been to a workshop before, welcome back. You pretty much know the drill, but I'm going to go through just a few little housekeeping details, introduce our hosts, and then we'll get started. So today's topic is how Nextdoor finds the right people at the right time to fix the right issues. Quick look at our agenda today. As I mentioned, we'll just do some introductions to our hosts. We'll hear from Nextdoor about how they were monitoring before Sentry and also how they're monitoring issues today. Then we'll talk with Phillip from Sentry about what features we built, why we built them, and then we'll actually demo those features all the way from an alert to resolution. And as always, we'll wrap up with your questions. So as the workshop is happening, please go, don't be shy, throw your questions in there. I'm organizing them and triaging them on the back end. I would just ask that if your question is specific for Phillip or Can, just at them or make note of that so we know who to direct the question to. And on to the housekeeping. Yes, this is being recorded, so we'll have a copy of it out to you probably no later than end of day tomorrow if you want to rewatch it. There is a short 2-question survey at the end. It helps us improve these workshops, make them better. We do them for you, so help us make them better for you. I think that's all from me. Oh yeah, if you see a question that's already been asked in the Q&A, feel free not to type out the same question again, just click the upvote button. Cool, let me go introduce our hosts today. From Sentry, we have Phillip Jones. Phillip's a product manager. And joining us is Can Zhang. Can is an engineering manager at Nextdoor. So before we really get started, I'm going to kick it over to these gentlemen for just brief introductions, and then we'll be underway. So Phillip, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Schaefer. So yeah, I guess before we get started, Schaefer already mentioned, but I'm Phillip. I'm a product manager here at Sentry. And probably a lot of folks in this call already know, but just in case you don't, just to kind of cover Sentry, it's an application monitoring solution for developers, and it allows folks to holistically monitor their code health, front end, back end, all in between. And we have kind of support across these 5 pillars. So error monitoring, performance monitoring, release health, our dashboard and discover tools, and also kind of tying it all together ecosystem. With that, I'll hand it over to Can.
Thanks, Phillip. Hi, everybody. Am I on? Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Can, and I'm an engineering manager at Nextdoor. And Nextdoor is a social network app that focuses on hyperlocal content and helps people build connections with their neighbors. We're live in about 11 countries, and 1 in 3 households in the US are Nextdoor members. We've been around for about 10 years, and recently we opened up our Toronto office, and that's where my team and I are located. And today I'm here to tell you about how we use Sentry to improve our bug triaging processes. In terms of our tech stack, we are a mostly monolithic architecture, and it's built in Python and React.
Hey, can I interrupt you real quick? This is Schaefer. I just want to make sure you know you're not sharing screen yet.
Oh, sorry about that.
All good.
All right, pretend I didn't say anything yet. I mean, I did.
Take your time. There you go. Now we can see it. Great.
Okay, perfect. So that was the slides I was supposed to show. Okay, now, okay. All right. So, right, we're talking about how we are a mostly monolithic architecture, and it's built in Python and React. On any given day, there can be more than 100 engineers working on the monolith at the same time. And on top of that, my team is mostly working on the newsfeed, which is affected by a lot of the work that other teams do. And because it's also one of the most used features by the users, anything happens to our system, it's likely that it's going to be broken in some way in the newsfeed, and people are going to notice. And then we get tweaks like this that is telling us that something's wrong with our product. And a lot of times we rely on that for users to tell us our issues in our software. We currently use Jira to triage bugs. And a lot of times when we get those reports, we try to first reproduce the issue and then determine if it's something actually wrong in our software. If so, then we kind of make a educated guess on what team is supposed to go and fix those issues based on recent change histories or general code ownership. And we would do this multiple times a day. By we, I really just meant just me, so. And we added some Jira filters and dashboards to really help us streamline the process, but it's still just too many of these things, right? So you can see that in the Slack message, my boss has to constantly remind me, to triage our bugs, and you can probably tell from his tone that he's not very pleased. And recently there was a bug that really made me realize that we need some serious help with our triaging process. We recently, this is about 2 months ago, we released a feature that allows users to enter a phone number into Nextdoor. And then some of these users who did had their newsfeed completely broken on web. When people started reporting these issues, because none of our test accounts had phone numbers associated with them, none of us was able to reproduce the issue. And then as a result, we weren't convinced that there wasn't actually something wrong with our software because the description of the bug was so generic. And then about a month after, one engineer on the team received the same bug report from his brother-in-law. And that's when we realized that something's actually wrong when we look at what's happening on their client. And then when we went and investigated the problem, we saw all these error logs that have been going into Sentry this entire time for the last month that we could have seen if we get notified from Sentry. So we had Sentry set up for the longest time, but we weren't really using it to its full potential. Specifically, we have just a lot of errors that goes into Sentry, and over time, a lot of people kind of become numb to these errors, and then if you want to find something, you still have to click into these individual errors to see if it's actually something that's worth fixing. And due to the fact that we're mostly a monolith, it is even harder to determine who is supposed to be responsible for these errors. And then we kind of go back to what we do with Jira, that we start to rely on people randomly spot checking in those errors and then paying teams manually to tell them something's wrong. You can see that these are examples of other teams pinging our team saying that, oh, there might be something wrong. And then you still have to go and spend maybe half an hour to investigate if that's something that's truly broken. So overall, this is sort of an overview of how the bug triaging flow works before. And you can see there's pretty much a total mess here. It's just too many arrows here. No one likes too many arrows. And most importantly, we have to rely on customers and employees to tell us something's wrong, which is not a great experience for people. Here's how the process looks now with Sentry in the picture. Now with the errors that are resulted in error logs in Sentry, we now catch these errors before users notify us. And because we have Slack integrations and the co-owner feature, these errors get routed to the right team directly to Slack where teams work. I stumbled upon the code owner feature when I was looking for help in like just basically looking for ideas to improve our bug triaging process. We already use GitHub and Nextdoor, and we already have code owners files set up in the monolith. So doing this is actually really straightforward. I just went in and then click a button and then connect to our GitHub repository. Then everything just got imported, everything started working. And then you can see this is an error that got routed to our team because there are 2 lines in this error stack that is owned by our team. And then with the Slack integration and the Sentry alert, this error gets routed to a specific Slack channel that our team watches pretty closely. And this is, when I set this up, I was careful with what conditions I used to set up that Sentry alert, because if those alerts becomes too noisy, then people start ignoring them. Once you follow the link to Sentry and then start investigating the error and then confirm that this is something we would like to fix, then you can also create a Jira ticket directly from the Sentry interface. And then at that point, this Jira ticket now gets included and tracked in our global bug triaging process. So overall, this process saves us 50 minutes of trying to reproduce and determining if something is wrong with our software. And then it saves another 15 to 30 minutes trying to triage to the right team. And most importantly, some of these errors, like the ones that I covered earlier, they're basically impossible for us to detect without the help of specific context around these errors, because there are just so many ways people can use our product. There's so many different situations people can have. There are still obviously many areas for improvement. And well, the first thing is that I noticed that since I started using code owners, that a lot of our front-end tracking basically doesn't give enough context for the code owners to figure out what teams or what line is wrong. So that's just something we have to do better with the SDK in JavaScript and React. And then secondly, I like to have a way to set up a universal alert that routes these errors to the correct teams into the right channels. And then lastly, it's more of a people side of things, where now that I have this set up and then kind of sees the benefits of it, I like to kind of encourage other teams to do the same thing at Nextdoor. And with the kind of how straightforward this setup is, I can't imagine it being too difficult. That's it for me. And if you're interested in learning more or help us improve the bug triaging process at Nextdoor, we're hiring globally. And you can go to Nextdoor's career page or contact me at can@nextdoor.com directly. I will now pass it back to Phillip.
Appreciate it. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Great, so assuming y'all can see my screen now. Yeah, and thank you, Can. So Can went into some of the sort of high-level workflows that they have at Nextdoor and how code owners and Slack is helping get issues in front of the right people. But I kind of want to go just kind of show how it looks like in practice with the live demo here. So wish me luck. Hopefully it works. But this right here is like a little demo online hardware store app that we have. And for a moment, I'm going to be someone in that, trying to buy a hammer from this hardware store. So if I'm as a user sort of check out now, I see something went wrong. And maybe I'm trying to like debug a little bit. And in this case, I'll sign out. Well, I guess that doesn't work either. And, it's not working. It's frustrating to me. Typically what would happen in this sort of scenario is, a couple of errors will get created, and like, maybe they don't have a signee, and sort of like Ken mentioned, maybe someone, takes a look at them, but it's either way, it's not gonna, it's gonna be hard to get that issue in front of the right person. And this looks like a simple demo app, and it is, but different parts of this application are owned by different teams, actually. So this type of stuff, when I tried to check out, that belongs to an e-commerce team, and when I signed out and that didn't work, it's an accounts team. So let's go ahead and check Slack. If I go here, I could see that if I, switching to being a developer or someone responsible for this application, I can see that an alert has already been triggered and sent to my team's Slack channel for the issue that we just saw our imaginary user me experience. So I can click into this issue, and I can, I could see all the context around it, and I could see how it automatically got assigned. So this is one way you could see an issue. Alternatively, we can see it in the issue list. So we can already see that both of these issues that the user generated were automatically assigned to the right teams, one accounts, one e-commerce, like we mentioned. And alerting is one way. And then alternatively, each of our teams, for example, accounts, could have a saved search, and they can actually just go in Sentry and see what's relevant to them. But regardless, once we do that, and the developer sees the issue that happened, we can use all the power of Sentry to get context and solve that. So we can see, okay, what release was this introduced in? How often has it been occurring over the last 24 hours, 30 days? We can see various tags, and we can do all kind of cool stuff with that. Like, oh, is it only occurring on Chrome, or, and then of course we can see the stack trace and go into GitHub and things like that. And once we're done sort of triaging, we can create a ticket in Jira or any number of our other issue tracking integrations, and kind of continue with that workflow. So that's sort of it. And that's sort of the reason why we created this functionality as well. So in the past, the issues page for some folks could look like an inbox without sort of assignees or without responsibility. And this is helping get issues in front of the right people. And just to kind of take a step away from that workflow and show a little bit more about how it's set up. In order to set this up with code owners, we can go over to the settings, issue owners for the project, and we can click set up now or add a code owners file. All we have to do is simply select our repository. In this case, I've already added it, so I won't do it now, but then you'll be able to see this right here. So once you add it, you'll be prompted to map some teams, but once you do that, you'll be able to see it here, and it'll automatically start assigning issues to the right folks, depending on what you have set up. And just to take a look at the alert, the reason why we got that notification in Slack, I have a new event alert that doesn't really have many fancy triggers, but essentially anytime a new issue occurs and it's owned by our e-commerce team, it knows to send it to our e-commerce's team Slack channel, which you can set up in Slack with a / command. And these triggers are quite powerful. You can do all sorts of things with them. One new feature that we have is that you can do this by, instead of just saying every new event, you can say, oh, well, if this affects, more than 5% of sessions, then I want to trigger an alert. Alternatively, I have this manually set up to send to the e-commerce team. But if I wanted to, I could just send a notification to issue owners, and that would just send it to the right team, whether that's the account team or the e-commerce team or whatever other team that I have there. And this is quite powerful because you can sort of set up one alert rule, one sort of baseline alert rule if it affects more than 10% of the sessions or whatever makes sense for your organization. We'll just know who the right team to send it to in Slack, and that's sort of as Can was talking about, kind of cuts out the middleman there and just gets the issues in front of the right folks to be triaged. Yeah, and I don't know if I kind of showed the setup there. Can, if you have any comments or suggestions for folks listening in.
Yeah, I think I just learned like two new things that might just solve my problem with setting up those alert rules for all the different teams. One thing is that we currently use new error alerts as a condition, and I just noticed I didn't know there was that percentage of sessions, because that's going to be really helpful. You saw that we had errors that are from a long time ago, but then if they actually became more frequent, then that is something we want to look at again, even if it's an old error by Sentry standard. And also the second thing is that you showed the send notification to an issue owner, which is kind of what I'm looking for, because all different teams can then like really specify what Slack channels they send their notification to, right? Without having to kind of directly set them up here. So these are really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for adding that. Yeah, especially this new, some of the new filters we have really are meant to sort of give folks more fine-grained control to such that teams are only getting alerted when they actually want to, reduce the noise and things like that. But yeah, that's all I had to show there, and I'll hand it off to Schaefer for Q&A.
Awesome. Great back and forth, guys. I've got a few questions for you, and keep asking them, audience, keep asking questions, and we'll get them answered. We'll start with, it looks like a question for Phillip. Phillip, does the code owner feature work for GitHub Teams as well, as in when the code owner's file looks like path to @GitHub team instead of an individual? So basically, does it work for teams? And
yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, when you import it, it works for both teams and users in GitHub and GitLab as well. So as long as you have whatever source code integration with GitHub or GitLab that you have, and you import the code owners, we'll prompt you to map which teams in GitHub live in which teams in Sentry, etc. But yeah, so short answer, it does cover teams as well. And that's actually where we're seeing the most value for folks.
Great. Can you track metric alerts in Sentry? If the answer is no, can you send Datadog alerts to Sentry?
I'm sorry, what was this question?
Can you track metric alerts via Sentry?
Yeah, we do have metric, Sentry does have metric alerts. This code owner's functionality is currently maps things with the alerting I showed was issue alerts, but Sentry does have a metric alerts product as well.
Cool. Did you need to tweak your code owner's file at all to make Sentry better at the assignment?
No, we follow the same rules as the same sort of rules that GitHub does in terms of the code owner's file. So if you have a certain catch-all rule or like different levels of granularity of rules, the one that we pick for the assignment is the most specific one. You'll be able to see all the matching rules under suggested assignees on the issue details page, but the one we do for assignment is the last matching rule. So same syntax there.
Cool.
Just that one thing there, Schaefer.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think, yeah, in general, the rules are working for us pretty well. As in, you can see it even in my screenshot, it shows like there are two lines that are matches our ownership. But then, like Phillip said, I believe that it weighs the I would say deepest level in the stack trace. That's probably weighted higher than the others. And the other thing, to answer the question about tweaking your code owner's file, no, you don't have to take everything works out of the box, but at the same time, it's like once you see it working, you're kind of motivated to kind of tag as many files as possible into a code owner's files. In a way, it kind of pushes you to tweak it so that you can enjoy the benefits of it more.
Awesome. Thanks for adding that, Can. Will there be any owner support for Bitbucket, Phillip?
It's a good question. So GitHub and GitLab currently support code owners files out of the box. Bitbucket does not have that support yet. However, we are, I think we'll have some solutions for folks using our APIs in order to send us custom code owner files regardless of source. So yeah, no, not currently, but we do have plans to allow folks with other source code providers as well.
Cool. On to the next. If the code owner's file changes in the repo, is it possible to get that update automatically to the Sentry configuration?
Yeah, so we currently require a manual sync step there, but that's sort of next on the roadmap. So we'll have automatic syncing, and we're also going to be exposing our API so folks can update it, whenever they want in their build and deploy process.
Cool. Someone says they can't see the session percent filter in the options for the if condition. They're curious if it's only available to a certain set of users or on certain plans at the moment.
I don't have the answer to that question, but I can look into it, and we can have a note to follow up.
Okay, cool. Let's see here. How does Sentry, this is a longer question, but I'm going to shorten it a little bit. How does Sentry know how to group events together? And this is getting into the technical weeds, but for example, when two issues are the same, how does it decide, hey, these need to be grouped together?
Yeah, I think that we have some documentation on these kind of things. I think grouping is sort of one of the more important parts of Sentry, is constantly evolving. I think it'd probably be best just to send some documentation over
okay,
on that.
Can, do you all, are you configuring anything to group certain events, or is it coming out of the box just like grouped?
Yeah, it just pretty much works out of the box.
Nice.
Yeah, and there are different things that folks will need to, depending on the platform, to get grouping working correctly. For example, if it's JavaScript, then you'll want to make sure that you have source maps and things of that nature. But yeah, I think that question probably calls for a deeper dive depending on the situation there.
Okay. Let's see. Is it possible to create a Jira bug assigned to issue owners automatically based on certain conditions?
Yes. So for business plans, we have the ability for Jira issue creation as an action at the end of alert rules. So you can configure your own custom rules, and you can say, hey, if this issue affects this percentage of sessions and it's owned by this team, then we can create a Jira ticket assigning it to this team. So we do have that sort of automation path there.
Got it. Cool. This question is about editing rule alerts. Is there a way or a plan to get more granular logic than the all, any, or none UI for editing a rule alert? Example being like some sort of query string. This person has found that sometimes those conditions can't capture filtering as effectively as they'd like.
Yeah, well, I think it depends on the use case here. I would also encourage folks to check out metric alerts, or try to create different types of alerts where you can use discover query syntax to do certain things. But yeah, I think it sort of depends on the use case there, but I would encourage folks to check out metric alerts if they're finding that the issue alerts doesn't have the level of granularity they need.
Got it. Cool. And we can send out a link to documentation in our follow-up email just to get really specific. Let's see, more questions. Keep them coming if you've got them. Can we use Sentry from the server side?
Yes, yeah, you can. So you can use Sentry on any number of platforms, front end, back end, and you can even tie those transactions together as well.
Cool. Seeing any more come in. Any last words, Phillip or Can, before we wrap things up here today?
No, I guess I would just say if anyone has any further questions or wants to chat, wants to give any feedback, definitely feel to reach out. My email is just Phillip Jones at Sentry, my name, .io. So please feel free to reach out. Happy to have any discussions or talk further.
Yeah, pretty much the same here. Like any questions for me, and you can always find me through the Can at nextdoor.com. But also want to say thank you for having me today. And I just noticed like how many people in the participant, like I didn't know the interface too well, but then Schaefer keep telling me this is a casual occasion, but I'm seeing more than 100 people. Really hard for me to believe that. But really, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great having you both. And for everyone still out there, there's a 2-question survey after I close down the webinar here. Really help us to improve future workshops. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time.
Appreciate it.